Welsh and Murray here to chat all things film and everything else in between. We don't get to do this during Scripty Business because it's too much of a rush, so we take a breather, we take a chill pill and just have a good old yarn about stuff in the medium. And we somehow have landed an actual guest, an actual legitimate guest with legitimate background and qualifications, and look him up on IMDb.
Hey, that hurts my feelings. I have an IMDb.
Oh, that's... I'm not talking about you, Murray. I'm talking about you, Murray. I'm talking about you. Stephen Puri, welcome to an Australian podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. It is morning here, and I think it's June for you, so we're good. I'm ready to do this.
Like I mentioned, you can look up your IMDb, you can check out the stuff you've done, but I guess for people that are hearing you talk to us now, in a nutshell, under pressure, gun to your head, who are you?
People are listening going, oh, this is kind of a unique episode. This is not the typical thing, but will this be interesting to me? Here's why it will be interesting to you, or not. I am one of the few people you'll meet who's been a senior executive at a couple motion picture studios. You know, I've worked Sony, Fox, DreamWorks, a bunch of places. And I've also worked in tech. I've raised over $20 million of venture, run a few startups, 2 failures, 1 successful exit. It's true, you learn more from the failures. And a lot of what I learned along the way were the patterns of the high performers with whom I worked, specifically around flow states. And I hadn't experienced a flow state until long after college. When I did, I was on a flight with no Wi-Fi, and I was like, wow, I got all this done. I feel great, blah, blah. And talking to a friend of mine, and he explained to me, oh, that was a flow state. I was like, why didn't someone tell me about this in college? You know, I created the Suka with a friend of mine, which is a flow state website. Here are the tools to get into flow. I'm lazy. I just want a big play button. It kind of does it all for you, right? Super helpful. So what I do with my life these days is basically talk about how, if you create stuff, if you're a writer, engineer, developer, designer, you can access that kind of flow state and do great things.
We've landed a guest, Murray, which is unreal. What the hell? What the fuck?
Yeah,
How did this happen?
How did this happen? How did you come across our podcast? Just out of curiosity.
You know what's funny is I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. And I had, this is over a year ago now, I'd asked people in my community in Suka. I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about film and writing and flow states and stuff like that. And where do you guys get reliable information? And pretty much across the board, people who weighed in said Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We pretty much assume everyone there is being paid to push energy drinks and nutritional supplements and mattresses and garbage. So we don't trust anything there. It's entertainment. And when I was like, well, whom do you trust? They basically said, my friends. My friend recommended something. I'm going to believe it. And they named a ton of podcasters that I had never heard of, which I thought was interesting because I've heard of, like, I live in Austin, Texas. So, you know, Rogan and Ferris and, you know, Hoopling comes to town, and Atia back before, you know, Epstein stuff and all that. None of those names. Those were all in the category of they're just selling AG1 and selling you 8 sleep mattresses or something. So I started listening to podcasts last year, which is ironic because one of my buddies was the global head of podcasts for Apple for 14 years. And I never really listened to podcasts while he was at Apple.
No way.
And I thought podcasts are interesting where maybe the audience would enjoy the kind of things I share and talk about. Reached out. Just said, hey, man, here's a link to, you know, like my IMDb, or here's a link to, you know, bio page and stuff like that. If this is interesting for your audience, I'd be happy to chat. And somehow someone forwarded the email to you. And I was like, not those guys, but you'd gotten it already. And it was awkward. And I had to pretend like I said it.
And we thought we were being contacted by a spam bot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were. I am a spam bot.
Okay,
halfway
great.
through this, by the way, I'm going to glitch out. We're just going to be like, he wasn't real. I knew he wasn't real.
AI, you've got us again.
Exactly. AI. Just accept it.
We tend to discuss, it always sounds so wanky when I say this, like discuss. Who are we fucking kidding? We're just 2 blokes talking about film.
Yarn, mate.
I'm glad you isolated that part as the wanky part, not everything else you've said. Except that.
Yeah, just that. It's my background, okay? It's my professionalism.
I could be secretary of the UN. Right, man. Thank you.
We talk about shit in this podcast, and we haven't really come up with a topic as such to talk about in this episode with you, Steve, because essentially you are our subject matter for this evening.
I think one of the great criminal things in the world today is how many of our best minds work for companies whose business model is simply steal your life. They just want you to watch ads on their platform all day long, and they don't want you to write the screenplay, make the movie, write the novel, create the company, open the restaurant. Like, that is antithetical to their business model. So that motivates me to get out and say, hey man, I discovered this really cool thing. I realized a lot of people discovered it before me. Why didn't anyone tell me? And here's some ways to access it. So that's kind of the fun of it. And, I think we'll probably have some laughter, some tears. It's going to be a great episode.
Oh yeah.
So you really touched Murray in his soul.
You did. I really felt it. This is definitely something that I discovered early on in my kind of writing practice, was this sense of a flow state. And also completely and utterly accidentally.
Wow.
More is like a,
How? What was that like the first time you're like, whoa, this was cool?
you know what? I actually fully took it for granted the first time it happened. Because I was kind of I used music as a stimulus to like incite a flow state.
Super popular, yes.
And it was usually used as it's like a counterweight to like my ADHD and just having like a brain that just goes like in a million different directions, and then just it needed like the railroad tracks in place. And yeah, it was music for me. And then you just kind of go down into this place. The most noticeable one, the first time I had a character that I was writing a movie, and the character started behaving themselves, and I was no longer writing. I was witnessing.
You were in the zone.
This character like talk and behave and interact, and that was a really strange and weird and unique feeling, and just being like, oh wow, this is kind of electric. And it feels really weird that it's the same thing as puppetry.
That is super cool.
Yeah, it's really, really bizarre feeling.
I know there is some portion of your audience that are like flow masters. They're like, I'm floating above my desk right now in meditation.
Oh, naturally, yeah.
And they're probably another cohort that's like, what exactly are you guys talking about? For those listening who just want a little more clarity on what this is about, flow states, the term comes from a Hungarian-American psychologist who about 40 years ago said, isn't it weird the way when you talk to high performers in different disciplines, like athletes and artists and scientists and inventors, and they talk about the highly concentrated state where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing we know them for. They're doing very different things, but they talk about it in very similar ways. He's like, there's something to that, what up with that? So he did a bunch of interviews and the research and the whole thing. And at the end of it, he wrote a book called Flow. It's the seminal work on this. It's why we call it a flow state. And he said, I think the greatest thing, he said, a lot of people I spoke to have their own words for this. Oh, I'm in the zone. Oh, the muses are speaking, like whatever it is. He said, but I chose this word flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. You go further and faster. He's like,
oh, interesting.
That is what these high performers have figured out how to do, and to do it repeatably. And that really set the stage for conversations like the one we're having now, where it's like, oh man, I was in a flow state. It was really cool. And you hear about it a lot with creative people. There's that famous quote from Michael Jordan where he's like, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. And it's just like the entire world kind of falls away. I'm in this flow state on the court, and it's just, I control the ball, right? You hear about Einstein talking about his thought experiments, the way he would just like go into this kind of rapture of like imagining incredibly complex theoretical physics, situations that couldn't be tested. He had to go into this mental state to create that experiment. So once I stumbled upon it, and I don't know, Welsh, you've been kind of quiet, maybe not so much for you, but Murray and I are at the club.
Yeah, I work a corporate day job sort of thing, so I don't really get in a flow. But.
Just have a gun under your desk that's loaded, you stare at it all day.
Essentially, yeah, it's called my resignation letter, and I've got it pre-written just in case I really get sick of it. But no, I actually get this. This Murray would know. It's for me, it's gaming.
Yeah.
I truly can sink myself into online gaming and basically not blink or breathe or think about anything that I'm doing with the controller.
Right. You block out the world. You're in the thing. You're not looking at the clock, right?
Nope. And then the sun's up and I go, fuck. I've got to be up with my son in an hour.
Precisely. Yeah.
Great.
If you go back to the original work, Mihai writes that. He goes, all the people with whom I spoke, they said, you know what? When you get into this flow state, you don't look at the clock like time. You have no sense of time. Distractions fall away. You don't feel enticed to open up Facebook or Insta while you're, you do your best work faster than you thought possible. And at the end of doing this, you can actually feel a sense of uplift or joy rather than depletion and like, I need a nap.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of the phenomenon when you're like physically performing and you get to the end of the performance and you have no memory or recollection of what you did during the performance at all. Like you just can't recall it. It was just like you lived it, but in your memory it goes start, end, something happened in the middle.
Yeah, you were in flow.
It's basically every episode of Scripty Business that we do is that exact thing.
Right. Okay, but you're left. What's funny is when people have researched, like, okay, so what are the characteristics, what are sort of the conditions precedent that help you get into flow? What's interesting is people don't get into flow doing things they think are meaningless. So you have to be doing something you think is meaningful. And by the way, you have to have skills that apply. It is not like the old joke about Michael Jordan is not going to get into flow trying to paint and Picasso is not going to get into flow throwing basketball, You have to have skills that apply and you have to be doing it at a level that challenges you.
So for our creative listeners then, for the people who kind of, come to us because they are writers and actors and stuff, how do we initiate a sense of like reliably, because I know a lot of creatives, especially people in the grassroots space, they kind of stumble upon this, like catching lightning in a bottle and just being like, oh wow, that was amazing, this was the performance of my life, or I nailed this particular play on this day, or whatever it is. But how do you kind of reliably fine tune that to be like, oh, I want flow now, here's flow. Oh, I want to come out of flow, out we go. Because I feel like that's where the magic is.
Here's the interesting thing. After I had this experience and my friend explained to me, oh, that wasn't crazy. Like that was actually a flow state. You just never experienced one before. I did a bunch of research, reading on, the people who've spent their lives now the past 40 years digging into these specific aspects. So let me share a little bit of what I'd like to call science. Okay. And if you want to tune this out, go for it. So
don't you dare. There
was initially some pushback going like, is this a real thing? Or is this like woo-woo flow state? It's just you're concentrated. And Mihai said, when I've spoken to these high performers, like musicians and stuff, like you were talking about, it is that they feel they become one with the work. They kind of lose their sense of self as an identity and become one with the work. You also said this about writing, I think, where you said you were witnessing your characters talking. You weren't making them talk. You were an observer of that and you could document it, right? Which we're going to come back to in a moment. So these are really interesting because in an attempt to disprove that this is just concentration, someone thought to say, well, what if we could look at the brain activity and see, does it actually change when an artist or a creator or something says, I feel like I was in flow at this moment, this point in time. So jazz musicians, like in a jazz trio, there's often that moment where you kind of become one with the trio. It's improvisation and you're not thinking about yourself. They put jazz musicians in an fMRI machine. And it was interesting, the point in time at which they said, this is where I feel like I became one with the music. Their prefrontal cortex activity dropped off a cliff. That sense of like, I am self became so unimportant. The activity in the brain was all about the creation.
Oh, no way.
Right? Very similar to what you were saying about, I'm not the one pushing words to these people's mouths. I'm in a state of talking. My characters are alive and I'm documenting it, right?
Yeah.
Really a cool. So let's talk about what you're asking, because I get this a lot. I looked at it and music is a big one. Blocking distractions is a big one. Staying on track with things, being accountable. There is a large body of research on music that helps people get into flow. The sweet spot for most people in flow music is 60 to 90 beats per minute. Certain key signatures, often like minor key signatures, right? Long melodic passages that repeat. I'll tell you a funny story. I've got a bunch of friends who are film composers, right? Who have a lot of time. people do in film now. So, hey guys, could you write like a ton of music for us that's like 60 to 90 beats per minute, these key signatures, these kind of repeating passages, and all this stuff, right? Some binaural beats like. So threw that up and thought, oh, this is a great thing. So people come to, the Suka site, they can hit play, they'll hear, they can pick a playlist, like up tempo, down tempo, lo-fi, and stuff, right? Here is a funny learning. Buddy of mine mixes the Star Wars games for LucasArts, right?
Oh, hell yes.
Up in Marin.
Hell yes.
Yeah. So comes back and he calls me. He says, hey, man, what's going on? I was like, nothing. He's like, I just got back from Nepal. We're in Kathmandu one day and it rained so hard we couldn't leave. And it was this lush, beautiful, warm, like summer rain, whatever. And he said, so I had my recording equipment with me, as audio people sometimes do, I guess. He's like, so I recorded 2 hours of rain while we were there. And I got back and I realized it's never going to fit in a Star Wars game. I don't know what to do with it, but I remember you have that flow state site. Do you want it? Right. So I was like, sure, man, for free. Done. So I said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to quietly put up a playlist called Himalayan Dream Rain and just stick it in the middle of the other playlist. Let's see if anyone finds it. In 2 weeks, it became our third most popular playlist. And I was like, yeah. And I was kind of like, what up with that? Like we paid a bunch of money to some friends of ours to write all this original, beautiful flow music. And people are listening to effing rain recorded out the window.
That's sleep music, though. That's sleep sounds. Like I would, if I'm not listening to an audiobook to sleep, I would listen to that type of music on Spotify. Yeah.
So you know what I did? Because I run the platform, I know everyone's email address. People I saw listening to it, I emailed them. I was like, hey, can I chat with you for 5 minutes? Because I'd love to understand. We have all this beautiful flow music, but you're listening to rain. I want to learn, right? And I will tell you, if you boil down what every single person who replied to me said, it was this. It triggers me back to a point in time when I was young and I had to study and we lived in a place that rained.
Yes.
So you said it was it 60 to 90 BPM is what you said is the typical flow state?
We all have the friend that listens to show tunes, 90s gangster rap, or whatever. Like there are the outliers. Trust me.
Yeah.
I've spoken to so many hundreds of people now. Most people, yeah, they're like, flow music is this for me or lo-fi. And there are the outliers. But for most people, it's like, 60, 90 beats per minute. That kind of helps the brain drop it.
I was thinking about it when you were talking about studying. Like that's the thing that made me think of like, when would I have been in a legitimate flow state that's not poning noobs on COD? Because I'm sorry, I'm pretty good. I know I'm in my 30s, but I still fucking kill kids in COD. It's great. 130 BPM is my go-to study album.
Yeah.
It's called Hooked on Classics. Hooked on Classics is amazing. It's if no one's heard of it before, it's basically classical music medleys done to disco beat, and it's just I'm infatuated with those tracks, and that's what I listen to when I have to knuckle down. Even at my job now, if I've got a shitload of admin to get through, everybody sees me push my headphones in, and they think I'm listening to screamo or rap or my normal music. It's like, oh no, he's listening to classical music's done in a style of disco, Bee Gees, that sort of stuff.
You are a
that's
special
my flow
person.
state. I'm aware. I'm fucking unique.
Yeah.
My flow's like really high BPM, like drum and bass and like techno metal and stuff. Like it's not 90 beats per minute.
And this was the lesson for me in that everyone has their own way of accessing their flow state, and you just have to experiment around to find it. If you don't know what it is, try traditional focus music, try that sort of thing.
I don't know if this is flow state or something adjacent, but this is a tool that I've used as a writer a lot to problem solve. Like when I kind of feel like I've hit like a creative wall, or I don't know where the story is going or quite how the characters want to interact, or there's just like some machinery that isn't quite in place and the drama is kind of misaligned, I will like disengage my brain completely. So I'll like go do something remedial and repeatable, and then it will just solve the problem. So I'll go wash the dishes or go for a walk or have a shower, or as soon as I get in my car, if I drive, this is like one of the most frustrating things, and it's nearly killed me a few times, but if I'm driving, all of my like everything just solves. It's just like scenes explode in my head, dialogue comes out of nowhere, I understand characters, just everything just pops, and I have to like furiously either pull over and furiously write notes, or I used to carry a dictaphone in the car specifically to just be like, I have to say something right now or I'm gonna like lose it all.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
We've had so many impromptu scripty meetings while we're both driving because we'll just call to check in on the day. Oh, I had this good idea, by the way. And then the next thing I know, I'm sat in my driveway and we're still talking for 20 minutes. I've got missed calls from my wife saying, are you coming home? What's happening? It's like, oh, I've been on the phone to Murray. Sorry. I speak to him every day.
So how I got into film was sort of ass backwards. I was a student at the University of Southern California. And while I was there, not in the cinema TV school, happened to have a bunch of friends that were, and got a job working at an ad agency while I was in school, making money, right? It was a small agency, did largely trailers for movies and commercials for movies, right? Run by these two guys that were like madmen of Hollywood. They're like late 30s, early 40s, and just incredibly well-respected ad guys for film. My job was we would get in rough cuts of movies, largely from Warner's was a client, Sony, MGM, and I would assign them to writer producers. I would call up Murray and go, hey, Murray, Sony's got a new Will Ferrell comedy next summer. I got a rough cut here. You did a great job of that Will Ferrell thing last summer. You want to write this trailer, right? So that was my job. So basically just like air traffic control. So one of the two principals comes to my office, guy Jeff. And by the way, for the purposes of this story, he calls me Stevie. He's the only person in my life who's ever called me Stevie. But he's a friend to this day, and he still calls me Stevie, and I'm not 18 anymore, okay? So he comes to my office and goes, Stevie, so you know Bart? And I'm like, there's a guy in the vault named Bart. I think, yeah, I met him, yeah. He goes, you ever given Bart a movie, a trailer to write? I'm like, Bart, the guy who delivers coffee and like picks up tapes and stuff. Like we're done with the same Bart. I was like, no, Jeff, I've been in the elevator with him once. I really don't know him that well. What? Where are you going with this? He's like, I have an instinct, Stevie. Jeff, your name's on the door. Done. I will find something for him. So pulled like a Warner Brothers B title that had like a month deadline. So if he hated doing it after a week, I could give it to a pro that bang it out overnight. So 2 days later, Jeff is back in my office. Stevie, how's Bart doing? Jeff, I just gave him, whatever it was 2 days ago. I'm not going to stress him out, and I'll talk to him on Monday and see how he's doing. Okay, that's fine. What else did you give? Jeff, he has never written a trailer in his life. I gave him one movie to watch. And Jeff goes, Steve, creativity is always about the other thing. If you give Bart one movie to watch, he is going to have little beads of sweat come down his temples, and he is going to write the most obvious B version of that trailer you can imagine. He said, you have to give him something else to think about, because the part of your brain that does what would chocolate and peanut butter taste like together? That's not the part that you think you're thinking with. So he's like, trust me. And can I tell you, in their intervening decades, how many times, both in film as well as with designers and engineers, I have seen that proven true. I happen to be lucky. I've gotten a lesson when I was like 18, 19 years old, but he was spot on. And there is a great book about exactly what you described, Murray. It's called The Net and the Butterfly, sort of like capturing ideas, written by Olivia Fox Gabon and Peter Pollack. And they talk about when we are young, we like babies, we have this default mode network. It's just exploring the world. It's sort of like looking at, the headphones, smelling, want to try them. And then as we get more mature, we develop an executive mode network that executes action, right? I have to have my homework done by Tuesday's class. I've got to pick up the kids at 6, right? So it's executing action. And it becomes kind of the adult in the room to the default mode child in the room, right? Now, it's interesting because I had exactly the same experience, and so have met most people, is when the executive mode network is busy, I have to drive the car on the road, do the dishes, wash my hair, take a shower. When it's busy, the default mode network is like, oh, great, mom's not watching. I can actually like play with that chocolate and peanut butter and go, look what I found, Reese's Cups, right? And that is how it happens, because the executive mode network is busy doing something else, walking, showering, dishes, driving, whatever. So it is a great technique, by the way, when you're go for a walk, go for a drive.
That's so good. I'm so glad it's officially a thing.
So all of this kind of comes back around then, I guess, to how you found us and the type of things that we do. And it's something we've talked about since I say we, me and Murray have talked about this since we caught up, of how close are our complete chaotic, we just need to fucking put something down on paper, I don't care, we'll come back to this in a minute. How close to the real Hollywood movie production style of creativeness is that process that we do? Is that anything like what you would expect in a general picture, or are we just complete shambles?
I've seen a number of different writers, writing teams, and development processes that are successful, right? So yes, there may be some writers with whom I've worked that are absolutely like, I'm going to polish this outline. I know the roadmap for this entire movie. I am now going to take that to a first draft. I'm then going to dialogue polish, character polish, like a very traditional process, right? And it works great. And some of those, I work mainly with guys. So I'm going to say guys, because I didn't work with doing big action movies. It's mainly male writers. So I don't mean it in a gender biased way. It's just, other than Lita, yeah, man, it's like, it's all good, right? So I've worked with some of those guys that are exactly that. It is a very regimented process, and that is how they do it. And at the end, there is $1 million paycheck, and the movie gets made, right?
Damn, I want that paycheck.
Here's the interesting thing that I think we all know. We're all taught that if you study screenwriting, you're like, thou shalt come up with a problem and an obstacle and an internal struggle for the character. Like, do we all get it, right?
Yeah.
The more interesting thing is this, is the collaborative process where I've seen writing teams or writers writing teams that involve others, like, hey man, can we all have dinner? I'm stuck on this thing. I want to brainstorm this through. And I've seen this with, again, the $1 Million Writers Club, at least in action, they all know each other. Like, it's not like a mystery of like, is Damon friends with Alex and Bob, who know Chris McQuarrie, who know Billy Ray, who know David Ayer? You know what I mean? Like, you all kind of know each other. And I've been at dinners where it's like, 3, 4, 5 of us, and someone's honestly stuck. Like, I got to write this new Avengers thing. And like, everything's been done. We've done every kind of laser space weapon, time travel portal to, and you use all stuff together, right? Most of the other writers don't get credit for it, but it's you all paid into the pot. And at some point you're the one being like, hey guys, I need help with the new DC Comics thing, whatever, right? So here's probably the most important thing that I noticed about that process. And I'm going to illustrate it with a specific story, but out of respect, because it's in Steven Spielberg's in the story, but out of respect to Steven and the process of DreamWorks, I'm going to falsify the details, but the process is what is important. So,
does he let you call him Stevie? Are you able to call Stevie?
Stevie Spielberg.
Not at all. Actually, the very first, I started, I think, around Christmas, and at the Christmas luncheon, he came by my table, shook my hand. He's like, you can be the other Steven. I was like, I'm okay with it. That is so what the story I would say is this, is I'm very fortunate that in film, yes, I worked hard, but let's admit there's a lot of luck. Like, on the right day, you're talking to the right writer who's got a cool idea, and you buy it and it becomes a hit, or you get to work on it, whatever, right? So for whatever reason, yes, I've worked with David Ayer, Billy Ray, Chris McQuarrie, Kurtzman Orsi, Damon Lindelof, like a lot of the guys that are writing the top stuff. And by the time I'd made it to be an executive vice president at DreamWorks with Alex Kurtzman, Bob Orsi, I'd been in a lot of rooms. I'd worked on Braveheart with Mel, I'd worked on True Lies, I'd worked on Independence Day. We won the Academy Award for this effects. So, you're not jaded, but you're also not like super hyped, like, oh my God, I'm going to be in a meeting with Murray. You're like, I've met him 14 times over the past 10 years. Like, I will admit to you, the first time I had a story meeting, there's a project that I brought in, and we had a story meeting in Steven's private conference room, which at the Amblin compound at Universal is like this beautiful designed, it looks like a Southwestern Adobe fantasy that Steven designed, right? Off his large office, there is a private conference room in the Adobe style with the rough hewn table and the, fireplace and the whole thing. And I will admit, the first time we had a story meeting in there on a movie I brought in, I did have a little bit of like, how is this my life? Like, I can't believe I'm sitting here. Wow. Okay. Look cool. Don't let anyone know that inside I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? Right. So Steven's two people to my left at the head of the table. The writers are there. Stacy, the chairperson of DreamWorks, the president of DreamWorks, another executive, Alex and Bob, like a bunch of us at the table. And let's say we're talking about a potential movie that had aliens in it. And Steven has made some alien movies. He has spent some time thinking about aliens, right? So in the course of this, Steven has a note on a scene, which I'm going to falsify, which is like, he says, okay, so the next scene, it's where the alien comes through the wall and we realize the alien's allergic to dust or something, right? And
I feel so out of my element. It's like, where do I joke? When do I call him Stevie? When's the right spot?
where is this going to go next?
Maybe at the end.
That's what, if you learn anything from the last story that he told,
just do it.
You just gotta do it.
And you don't know where it's going to go. But it's like the first time you had sex. You're like, I don't want to stop, but I have no idea what's going to happen next.
We'll figure it out together, Steve.
Exactly.
While we got you in this sort of medium as well, I've got to ask, are you comfortable / even able to mention your favorite project that you ever worked on? Like, is there something that you look back on that career and go, you know what? Fuck, I'm glad I did that. That was awesome. And I can hang my hat on that.
I'll give you two examples. And I've been fortunate to work on a lot of movies that got made, because there are a lot of movies you work on that just don't, right? Okay. So I'll mention two. One is when I was producing digital effects, right? I was not a studio executive yet. I was the guy making the computer generated parts of someone's movie, right? It was like Tuesday night, we got in the script that someone had slipped us, because the next day we had a meeting with this production team, and the script, I don't know if you guys know, your life is reading. You're just continually being submitted scripts. Most of them are terrible. But even when you're in visual effects, you have to read them so you can talk to the director or producer. Be like, oh, so you need 400 alien shots. Okay, great. That's going to cost $19 million. Do you have the cash, right? Came in. It was a period. I didn't know what it was about. And it was like 1,000 pages. I'm kidding. It was probably like 160, 170 pages.
That's so big.
I got to read like at least 20 or 30 pages of this just to smile through the meeting and be like, right. So you're going to have how many horses and how many of the castles? Okay, cool. I was up until 2 a.m. Could not go to sleep until I finished the script. Had the meeting the next day. And this guy, Bruce Stevie, was supposed to come in with Steve McAbeedy, Jim Lemley. They were the Icon guys. And Mel Gibson came in along with them. And he was like, I'm going to direct this. And we were like, oh, you're going to star in this too. He's like, no. I want to build a career as a director. And no one's going to take me seriously if I only direct movies that I star in, right? So I need to have someone else star in this. Okay, well, let's get to work. What is it? And hearing the story of how, Brandon Wallace had developed Braveheart, how Mel had come to the project, how he wanted to use his, gravitas and sort of the cachet at that moment in time. This is pre the aesthetic stuff, pre the moon shadows and, all that stuff that happened. It was really striking, and it was one of the best scripts I'd ever read. And I think it actually became, which is so rare, the script on the screen translation was so faithful and so well done. Like, it wasn't, it was a good script, I don't know what happened. And it was just, he had to give in. Sherry Lansing and Paramount and, Fox co-financed it. They split up the world. he had to cave and say, okay, it's only going to get made if I star. Got it. I still want to make this movie. But it was a movie that's about something. It was incredibly hard to make, and just loved it. Just to this day, I can watch that movie and be like, wow, I'm proud to have made a small, tiny part of that. And then I'm going to tell you another one, which is very different, which I'm not like the big creative on this, but when the opportunity came up, I was with Kurtzman Orsi at DreamWorks, and J.J. Abrams wanted to reboot Star Trek, right? Paramount was like, come on, we got this Star Trek franchise. And like the 10th edition of the Star Trek franchise, I'm not exaggerating. You can look this up. I think it grossed $40 million total US. Like it was just such a bomb. And the Trekkers, because they prefer to be called Trekkers and Trekkies, the Trekkers actually loved that because the fact it made so little proved that it was a movie for them, by them. It wasn't like still out, kind of like, you know, you have to be so deep inside the world to know what a red shirt guy would do. And it was just like Paramount was lost. And they're like, well, we have this deal with Bad Robot here on the lot. And obviously JJ, Alex, and Bob go back to the early days of Alias and all that, right? So I was talking to Bob about that. And the rumors were still swirling like, Matt Damon is going to play Captain Kirk, you know, and stuff like that, right? And
no way.
I know. And it served me so well. And I can't believe I had been a development executive before that at Sony and not really understood this. So Bob is talking about their idea because they had some hesitancy about writing this. They're like, it's such a target. Like the fans can hate us. The non-fans cannot go. It could be a huge bomb. It's like you got to thread the needle to get it right, where the fans loved it, the non-Trekkers loved it. And Bob said this. He said, you know what I think it is? All the films that we write, because they'd done Mission Impossible 3 at that point and Zorro and a bunch of stuff. He said, all the films we write, we don't write them till we know what the indie film is. Like if someone only had $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
Oh, interesting.
I like that.
Is there a film that we would, you can't pay for photon torpedoes, you can't pay for dinosaurs, you can't pay for, is there a film inside that we would see? And if that is true, then we can write the photon torpedoes and the time travel stuff into it, right? And he said, so a lot of that for us comes down to, is there a family story that we think is authentic, that is true here? And what they were playing with was Cain and Abel. He said, you know what? If we approach this where it's Kirk and Spock are going to kill each other and they are going to lose the beats of the movie until they have it out and they get over their shit and they can only win the movie after that point. He's like, that to me feels like Two Brothers. That feels like a real story. And as you see, that is what Star Trek 11 was. If you strip away all of the genre elements, all the spaceships and the torpedoes and it is Cain and Abel. It is simply that story, and they lose the movie until they get over their own shit.
Yeah.
Man, we need to start thinking like that in scripted business, mate. Jesus Christ, we are nowhere near that level. Maybe one day.
And yeah, I learned a lot. I'll admit, as I came up with Alex and Bob, I learned a lot from them. Like they were really, really, really. They obviously, Bob died recently, sadly, and Alex is off on his own. But they were great guys.
I really wish we had that level of like infrastructure here in Australia, but we just don't. We just don't have an industry that size. But it would be incredible to be able to play in a space like that, to kind of have these concentrated learnings. Because like it makes total sense what you're talking about, and I feel like I've stumbled across like similar like the shitter version of this idea, accidentally by myself, like in my room. Or like going out to coffee and talking to friends. But man, I would do anything to be in a space like that. That would be incredible.
It is, I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, the fortunes keep on going, mate, because you've managed to be first guest of Other Business. What an honor for you to receive. You can put that up there.
I spent most of the morning crying. That's why my eyes are puffy.
And soon to be on a Scripted Business episode as well. So thank you very much for being a part of Other Business with us. I think that's a great moment to It's always hard. It's always hard to say goodbye to
No.
these little episodes.
Let's wrap it up. Exactly.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me.
Massive thanks to Stephen Puri, friend of the pod, Stevie, as I call him affectionately, and it's okay, I have permission. I just cut that segment out of this episode, but he's totally cool with it. Make sure you check him out, the Suga Company, for tips for flow state, how to get the most possible done. Basically, is what it comes down to. Turn off your brain, get shit done, get your life happening, get it together, people. You can also listen to Stephen Puri, in next week's episode of Scripty Business as our special guest director of the episode. I don't want to say it's a shit show, but it is a hectic time for all involved. I can't wait for you to check it out. We'll be back with another Other Business episode next Thursday. And don't forget, you can follow us on Ko-fi, Coffee, however you want to say it, to shout us a coffee, help us keep the lights on, buy some better microphones, buy some cold and flu medication so I don't sound like death when I'm making these post recordings. Please, God, help me. And we've got our live show coming, 23rd of July, the Howling Owl in Adelaide. Link in the bio. Get tickets, people, because it is going to sell out. I assure you.